In this video, we are going to answer a single question, which is what exactly is Node.js? Node.js came about when the original developers took JavaScript, something that at that point we could really only run in the browser, and they allowed it to run as a standalone process on your machine. So before Node was created, JavaScript just could not be used as a more general purpose programming language. It was limited to what the browser allowed it to do. So for example, I could use JavaScript to add a click event to this button or to redirect a user to a different page. But there was no way to use the JavaScript programming language outside of the browser to build things like web servers that could access the file system and connect to databases. All of these are the things that other programming languages like Java and Python can do without any problem. These are inbuilt features in those languages. But JavaScript could not do this until Node was created. All of this ended up changing with the introduction of Node.js. With Node.js, now JavaScript developers could use JavaScript on the server side as well. So they could use the same JavaScript programming language to create web servers, command line interfaces, application backends, and more. So at a high level, you know what Node is, right? Node is a way to run JavaScript code on the server, and we are gonna explore the answer by starting this entire sentence, which says Node.js is an open source, cross-platform JavaScript runtime environment. We are going to read this out, break it down, and it is gonna shed some light on what exactly is happening here. So Node.js is a JavaScript runtime built on Chrome's V8 JavaScript engine. And that all comes back to this JavaScript engine. Now, there are all sorts of JavaScript engines out there. Pretty much every major browser has their own. Node.js in particular uses the V8 JavaScript engine, and that is the same JavaScript engine that powers the Chrome browser. And V8 is a Google open source project. The job of the JavaScript engine, whether it is V8 or any of the other ones out there, is to take in JavaScript code and compile it down to machine code that your machine can actually execute. Now, I have explained all the internals of the JavaScript in my JavaScript course, like how the JavaScript actually works, event loop. I have explained all of these using amazing animations. And so I will highly suggest you to please make sure to watch that, because my JavaScript course is actually built before planning this backend course. So I planned all of my courses in sync. I planned my JavaScript course, and then there I taught everything that you as a developer need to understand. Not only how to code, but also how to think like a developer, plus how to understand the internals of JavaScript. And so that's why I have used animations and presentations by building analogies and chronologies to explain you the working of JavaScript. And so please, if you don't go through the course, just make sure to watch the parts where I've explained the internals of JavaScript with those animations and analogies. It will actually help you to understand how JavaScript actually uses the parser. It creates abstract syntax tree, and then again it creates the code to be executed by the machine. Okay, so there I have discussed about all of these V8 engines and parsers, right? Now the V8 engine is written in the C++ programming language. That means anyone out there who knows C++ could write a C++ application. They could incorporate the V8 JavaScript engine into their application, and they could extend the functionality that JavaScript provides. And that is exactly what both Chrome and Node.js do. Both Chrome and Node.js are largely written in C++. Now you will notice right here it says that Node.js is a JavaScript runtime, and that is true. Node.js is not a programming language. Java and Python, they are programming language. JavaScript is also a programming language, but Node.js is not a programming language. In the end of the day, all of the code we are going to write in this class is indeed JavaScript code, but the runtime is something that provides custom functionality. So various tools and libraries specific to an environment. So in the case of Chrome, it provides V8 with various objects and functions that allow JavaScript developers in the Chrome browser to do things like add buttons and click events or manipulate the DOM directly. Now, neither of those features make sense for Node, where we don't have buttons, we don't have a DOM because we are mostly going to work on servers. So on servers, we don't have UI components. So Node doesn't provide those things. Instead, the Node runtime provides various tools that Node developers need. Libraries for setting up web servers, integrating with the file system so you can read and write from disk. And in the end of the day, both Chrome and Node.js are just creating their own modified versions of JavaScript. Now, in the end of the day, it is still the same core JavaScript language, but with custom functions and objects injected. Now, this is actually a really important concept, so I put together a quick visualization to walk us through exactly what is happening here. So let's take a couple of minutes to jump into that. As I mentioned, we have the Chrome browser, and the Chrome browser uses the V8 JavaScript engine. Now, when Chrome needs to run some JavaScript for a particular web page, it does not run the JavaScript itself. It simply cannot. Instead, it uses the V8 engine to get that done. So it passes the code to V8 and it gets the results back. Now the same exact thing is true with Node. Node does not know how to run JavaScript code. It also uses that V8 engine. So when Node needs to run a script, it passes that script down to V8 and it gets those results back. Now I mentioned that V8 is written in C++, and I also mentioned that both Chrome and Node are largely written in C++, and once again that's no coincidence. The reason that both Chrome and Node use so much C++ is that they are both providing bindings when they are instantiating the V8 engine. This is what allows them to create their own JavaScript runtime with interesting and novel features. It is what allows Chrome to interact with the DOM when the DOM isn't part of the JavaScript itself, and it also allows Node to interact with your file system when the file system isn't part of JavaScript either. So V8 has no idea how to interact with the file system with JavaScript or what the DOM is. It is up to Node and Chrome to provide implementations for those when running V8. What does this process look like? Well, we have a table. It's not really a table, but it is convenient to think of it as a table. And we have a set of JavaScript methods and objects, and we have a set of C++ functions. So on the left, I have picked two very popular JavaScript methods. Here I have local storage.getItem, which would fetch an item out of local storage, and I have document.querySelector, which would allow me to query some elements from the DOM and then do something with them like deleting them or changing their contents. Remember the DOM part of the JavaScript course? Now it might surprise you, but neither of these are part of the JavaScript programming language itself. I explained you these steps in the JavaScript itself, that why DOM is not part of the JavaScript, but it is part of the browser API itself. And now, can you connect the dots? You can pull up the specifications of JavaScript, you can search for them, but you are not going to find them. That is because they are actually implemented by the Chrome runtime. When Chrome runs a JavaScript file that uses either of these two, in the end of the day, some C++ code gets executed behind the scenes, which is responsible for taking care of the functionality. That is why Chrome has so much C++ code. Now Chrome needs to tell V8 what to do when these methods are called. So Chrome is not just passing JavaScript code to V8, it is also passing down these C++ bindings, creating the context for which the JavaScript code should be executed in. Now the exact same thing is true with Node.js. Over here, I picked out a couple of Node.js methods that you will be familiar with by the end of the next section. I have fs.read file. Fs stands for file system, and a read file allows me to read the content of a file from disk. I also have os.platform. OS of course standing for operating system, and the platform method allows me to fetch the name of the platform I am running on, such as Windows, Linux or Mac. Now neither of these methods once again are part of the JavaScript programming language itself. They are provided to V8 as part of the Node.js runtime. So JavaScript does not know how to read a file from disk, but C++ does, right? So when someone uses JavaScript code in Node.js to read a file from disk, it just defers all of that to C++ function that can actually read the file from disk and get the results back to where they need to be. So once again, we have a series of methods that can be used in our JavaScript code, which are in reality just running C++ code behind the scenes. Now let's wrap up this video by going over a little code example that illustrates some of the differences and similarities between JavaScript in the browser and JavaScript inside of Node.js. So to start, we are going to open up any website. I'm just going to use the Node.js homepage, and we are going to open the console. To open console, right click, inspect, and then from here navigate to console tab. This is going to allow us to run individual JavaScript statements. So right here as an example, I can say 2 plus 3, hit enter, and I get 5 in return. I can also do something like this. So I can create this string code, and then on this string I can run JavaScript methods. So one common method that we usually run on strings is to uppercase to turn them into uppercase, and in return I got my string turned to uppercase. Now we can do the exact same thing in Node as well. Almost all of the Node code we are going to write in this class is going to live inside of files in a larger project, and that will happen over in Visual Studio Code starting in just a couple of videos from now. But for the moment, we are gonna go ahead and just mess around with Node right here inside of the terminal. So let's go ahead and do that. So from here, if you have some gibberish code, you can clear it by writing this clear command. This clear command is for Mac and Linux. Windows user, you will use this cls command. If I hit enter, it says command not found because of course I am on Mac, so I can say clear. Okay, this is a normal bash command allowing us to clear the output that we are seeing. Okay, so yeah, make sure if you are on Windows, you need to use the cls command. Okay, that is the version for your operating system. And now we are going to do what we are going to do from here is just run this node command. We are not going to put anything after it. It is just node, N-O-D-E, and then we hit enter. Now what we get here is a little place where we can run individual node statements. Now this place is also called as REPL, R-E-P-L, which stands for read, evaluate, print, loop. Like the terminal, it is waiting for us to run commands, but these are actually going to be Node JavaScript statements and not bash commands. So what are we going to do right here? We are going to write some JavaScript code, and then we are going to hit enter, and we will see some output. And I'm going to use the exact same two things, 2 plus 3, hit enter. What I get 5. And then again I will create this string. I will say code, and then on this string I can actually say uppercase. You can see it is suggesting us, hit enter, and we got the exact same thing here as well. So right here we can see that all of the core JavaScript features we are used to are still available when using Node.js, because those are provided by the V8 engine itself. Now let's head over to the browser and start to explore a couple of the differences. If you have worked with JavaScript and the browser before, then you are likely familiar with the window object. The window object is a reference to our browser window. I can type window, I can hit enter, that is going to dump the entire object to the console. And if you expand it Right here, we have a lot of methods. We have methods for frames, fetch, find, name, next. We have some methods for on-click, on-close, and if I keep navigating down, then we are going to get the dimensions for our window, which is the height of window, width of the window. So this entire window. Now all of these properties, these make sense in the context of JavaScript in the browser, because we actually have a window to work with. What happens if I try to get the window in Node? So if I say window, hit enter, and I can see I'm getting an error, a reference error, window is not defined. So window is something especially provided by the Chrome runtime when JavaScript is running in the Chrome application. Node doesn't have a window, it doesn't need window. So window is not provided. Now with Node, we have something kind of similar. We have a variable called as global. So global stores a lot of the global things we are going to be accessing throughout the course if needed. And if we scroll up, we can see we have dozens of different properties and methods available to us. We are not gonna dive into any of these right now, but we will be exploring several of them as we start to learn Node.js. Now, does the browser have global?
No.
Well, if I navigate little down, not little down, but a lot down, and here if I write global, it doesn't have a global. If I hit enter, we get reference error. Global is not defined. Now there is another difference I'm going to point out before we wrap things up here. In the browser, I have access to documents. So I can say document, hit enter, and I get this document object. Now we have document because document allows me to work with the DOM. So right here, I have a whole bunch of different elements that makes up my page, and I can use document to manipulate them in whatever way I see fit. Now this makes sense once again for the browser where we actually have a DOM. It doesn't make sense for Node where we don't have a DOM. So if I try to print document to the terminal, so if I say document, hit enter, we get a reference error, window is not defined. Because in Node, we do not have anything called as document. Now in Node, we have something kind of similar to document called as process. So process gives us various properties and methods for manipulating the Node process that is running. So if I dump this process to terminal, we can see there are all sorts of interesting methods and properties, including one that will be called as exit that I want to show you. So it would be somewhere here. This one, exit, okay? Exit allows us to exit the current Node process. Let's go ahead and actually use it to shut down our little Node example right here. So that is going to be process, so process, and then process, since it is an object. On this object, we have a method called as .exit provided by the Node. And then since it is a function, see by default it is not going to do anything. If you hit enter, it will say this is a function. And since it is a function, it is bounded to be called. Otherwise, why have we even created a function called as exit? So here I'm going to call it. And if I hit enter, what do I get? I get that I'm now brought back to the standard terminal where I could run other commands. No longer am I running little node statements. Now process once again does not exist over in the browser. So here if I say process, I get process is not defined. That is specific to Node.js. So again I typed process, I get process is not defined. So here we are seeing some of the differences between JavaScript in the browser. Here especially we are using Chrome, but other browsers would be the same. And Node.js, which is JavaScript on the server. So that is where we are going to stop for this one. Now let's take a quick moment to summarize all of this. Node.js is JavaScript on the server. This is possible because Node.js uses the V8 JavaScript engine to run all of the JavaScript code you provide. Now Node.js is able to teach JavaScript new things by providing C++ bindings to V8. This allows JavaScript in essence to do anything that C++ can do. and C++ can indeed access the file system. So now JavaScript can access the file system through Node. So this is what Node.js is all about. That is where we are going to stop for this one, and don't worry about memorizing all of this. No, as we move through the course and start to see this in action, I will bring up all of these individual pieces again. In the next video, we are going to dive into what is also a very important question, which is why should I learn Node.js in 2024? I'm very excited to get to that, so let's go ahead and jump right into the next video.